it may possibly be necessary that we need to go on after 10 o'clock. So under Council Procedure Rule 14.2, under my own powers, without agreement with anybody, we did extend the meeting to 10:30. So we now continue the report of the report. Okay. You've got before you a report of the monitoring officer in relation to 2 complaints under our Code of Conduct for Council. The group leaders panel has recommended that Councillor Coleman be censured in relation to 2 complaints. Councillor Coleman has exercised his right to appeal against those recommendations, and his appeal is in the papers before you. There are a number of legal points in the papers, and whilst I am not going to deal with each one, I will reassure the Council that you can lawfully consider the appeal, and then, if appropriate, go on to consider the recommendations in relation to censure. And I have taken legal advice on this, and that all councillors, if they are happy to do so, can take part. I'm going to ask Councillor Coleman to explain his appeal, 4 minutes, and then I'm going to ask Councillor Thomas, on behalf of the leaders panel, to respond, 4 minutes. Then I'm going to put the matters to vote. If the Council agrees to uphold the appeal, then the idea of censure falls away. But if you reject the appeal, we will then consider whether to censure Councillor Coleman, and I'll then explain how I propose to deal with that issue. So, Councillor Coleman, you want to you can go first, or Councillor Thomas go first? You want to go first? Or do you want to go first? Do you want Councillor Thomas to go? It's up to you, Mr. Mayor.
I think Mr. Mayor, it's Councillor Coleman's appeal, I think he should go first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You may wonder, Mr. Mayor, why I have come tonight to this appeal under our new proceedings and didn't attend the original group leaders' panel. And that's very simple. Because I was refused a lawyer. My lawyer was told he could not attend. That is under the rules, apparently, that this council has agreed. So the council was represented by a lawyer, but the defendant is not allowed to bring a lawyer along. I could bring a friend, apparently, but not a lawyer. That is an absurd, indeed, that is an absurd situation. So my lawyer's strong advice was not to attend. I have to say, I think that the Standards Committee should go back and look at this, because surely every defendant has the right of legal representation as they used to at the old Standards Committee. Indeed, Councillor Farrier is quite correct. They used to at the old Standards Committee, not under the new regime. Which brings me to these charges are brought under the old regime. These charges are brought under the old regime, but the council chose to use the new regime to deal with them, right? Because neither of these charges would have been entertained under the current Code of Conduct. Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I have to say, no evidence was provided to my lawyers that I said the remark stated, which I strongly denied. No evidence was provided that I said such thing. There was no independent evidence at all. As for one of the complainants, if you read in detail the emails, it is clearly a party political exchange in the middle of an election campaign for the Mayor and Assembly. The particular complainant is a regular complainant against me and other members of this council. Mr. Mayor, but of course she's been very upset by the way she's been treated, so upset that she was desperate to follow me on my recently opened Twitter account, and that I had to block her. That's how upset that particular complainant was. A complainant who even managed to gate crash the funeral of the late Councillor Lynn Gillan. A complainant who has written so many emails and blog comments that I stopped counting when I got to 236. Now, this is not some poor innocent member of the public who's upset about some robust email exchange. So that email exchange, I see nothing wrong with it. I'm sure if you read it in a party political environment, there's nothing wrong with it. Mr. Mayor, this is part of a concerted, long-running, very unpleasant and highly personalised campaign run by a number of people. You all know who they are because you've all seen endless press stories, letters in the paper, blog postings that you secretly read when you pretend not to. Twitters, I know Councillor Marshall, you're admirably rather Twitter feeds, and you all deny reading them, but you secretly do read them. I'm not suggesting you do, Councillor Marshall, but you secretly do. So you all know what the scenario is here. I leave it to members to decide. I take this as no sort of political matter, and I don't expect to have my appeal be successful. Just sadly, I think, and I particularly resent members who've already heard it and voted on it, turning up to hear it and presumably vote on it again. Because no way in any quasi-judicial process is it right when you go to appeal, somebody else hears it. So I do find that advice extremely strange, and it's against my lawyer's advice as well.
Mr Mayor, it's all stated in the report that's been tabled tonight. With regards to legal representation, Councillor Coleman in this chamber has been an advocate of the private sector in the past. In the private sector, employees, I know we've got employees in this chamber of the council, but employees don't have legal rights. So to suggest that this council has gone out on a limb to deny Councillor Coleman legal representation, and that this is a unique situation, isn't actually the case. In the private sector, if somebody is brought before a tribunal or a disciplinary meeting, such of this nature, they are not entitled to the right legal representation, and indeed case law suggests that actually in these sort of circumstances where the action taken doesn't stop the person from performing their role as a councillor, then actually we can continue down this route and say there is case law with that. I know Councillor Coleman's been in touch with members on various other issues, but I would add that the panel met for over 2 hours. We considered 4 complaints. We rejected 2 of those, and we upheld 2. So this is not a concerted effort to try and tarnish Councillor Coleman. It was careful, thoughtful consideration. And as far as the legal representation of the council legal officer, she wasn't there to do her best to prosecute Councillor Coleman. She was there to advise the panel. To advise the panel on the code of conduct and to advise us on the proceedings of the panel in line with the Constitution. It was not some sort of concerted effort by the councillors or by officers indeed to get a guilty verdict for Councillor Coleman. I don't want to repeat what's in the reports, Mr Mayor, but we thought long and hard over this, and what we agreed as a panel and what we were advised was that under the Local Government Act we were entitled to consider complaints that were made before the new standard regime in this borough, the Different Leaders Panel, came into force, and that the code of conduct at the time of the incident applied. And that is why tonight we are voting to, well, later on in the evening, if Councillor Coleman's appeal is rejected, that is where we are. We need to look at the code of conduct at the time. Mr Mayor, I have nothing else to say. The papers are very straightforward, and indeed some of them are very in-depth in terms of the complaints. And it is up to members to make their own minds up. But they'll say the group panel, which consists of is an all-party panel with an independent member as well, and came to unanimous decisions on those 2 upheld complaints.
Right. No. I'm not debating. You will have this opportunity.
Oh, you are going.
I told you what the procedure is. I'm going to put it to the vote now. Those.
Mr. Mayor, I'll point of order. Councillor Coleman questions the right of those members who have taken part in the original hearing to take part in the vote at this meeting. Can I ask that we be advised by our lawyer whether or not that is true?
I have already taken the advice, and the advice is that it's perfectly proper. But if you want to hear it from Mr. Pearce, who's a senior member of our legal team, he is here, and under the council proceeding, council procedure rule 5.4. As an exception, I'm very happy to ask Mr. Pearce to clarify that for you now. It is an exception. We don't normally hear officers, but if you are concerned about that, I'll call Mr. Pearce. Mr. Pearce, do you want to answer that question?
Mr Mayor, there's provision in the Localism Act which explicitly says that the fact that members have taken part in an earlier discussion on an item and expressed a view on it does not preclude them coming to a subsequent meeting and taking part in that meeting. So I'm very clear on my advice tonight to all councillors, if they wish to take part, they can.
Mr Mayor, before you take the vote, it's important I was on the original panel, I have to say that I will not take part in the vote because I don't believe anybody sitting on the original panel ought to be involved in the vote in the appeals.
That's your problem, Councillor. No doubt there will be a minute taken for that. Those members of the Council in favour of allowing Councillor Coleman to appeal, please show. Those in favour of dismissing the appeal, please show.
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Those in favour of dismissing the appeal, could they please show?
I'm at 39, just a minute.
Okay, so the appeal, I think, is dismissed. In those circumstances, there are two recommendations from the group leaders panel in respect to the breaches of the Council's Code of Conduct. I'll ask the following speakers to talk to both recommendations. I'll be allowing Councillor Darren Thomas 3 minutes, Councillor Coleman 3 minutes, Labour Group spokesman 2 minutes, Liberal Democrat Group spokesman 2 minutes, and Councillor Darren Thomas will sum up, he will have 2 minutes. And I will then read out the wording of the recommendations 1 and 2. They are on the page, but I will read them out. So, Councillor Darren Thomas, you've got 3 minutes.
Mr Mayor, to quote another colleague, I thank you for the time. But I'm not going to use that time, Mr Mayor. It is in the reports. It's pretty straightforward. As I say, you know, some councillors in this chamber spent over 2 hours deliberating on this, and I don't want to repeat that over 3 minutes here. There's a point of the group leaders panel. I mean, the standards and that, we can debate the whole standards regime and you know, for many hours, but the fact is this council has a constitution, it has a system of dealing with complaints against members, and that system has been has come to this conclusion. I've got nothing to add to the papers, Mr Mayor, and I think we should go to a governance colleagues really do want to add to the papers.
Councillor, 3 minutes. Thank you. Councillor Moore, do you present any member of your group wish to say anything?
I was saying to say that the evidence, there was a detailed debate in the evidence that was clear to members in the room.
Councillor Coleman, do you want to say? I presume that we then will exercise the right to sum up. So let me read out the recommendation. I'm going to take them separately. First one in relation to the formation of the complaint. 1, that Councillor Coleman breached paragraph 3.1 of the Members' Code of Conduct, and 3 others with respect. The code applies as April 2012 when the breach occurred. 2, in view of 1 above, the panel recommends censure of Councillor Coleman for his failure to treat others with respect, a breach of the Members' Code of Conduct applicable at the time of the breach. That's the first recommendation. I'm going to take the vote on that. Is that agreed? Anybody against it? No, it's unanimous. Second complaint relates to Dr. Julia Hines. 1, that in respect of the complaint about email correspondence, Councillor Coleman breached paragraph 3.1 of the Members' Code of Conduct. You must treat others with respect. The code applies as at April 2012 when the email correspondence occurred. When he sent it to emails of the 10th of April 2012, sent at 3:46 p.m. and 4:07 p.m. to Dr. Hines, the third email of the 10th of April 2012, sent at 4:51 p.m. was not viewed by the panel as an attempt to defame Dr. Hines, and this was tempered by the word seems. Number 2, in view of 1 above, the panel recommends censure of Councillor Coleman for his failure to treat others with respect, a breach of the Members' Code of Conduct applicable at the time of the breach. I now put that to the vote. Those members please in favour of the recommendation, can we please show. Those against? Those against? Nobody. Those abstaining? Of course, yes. Very good. So I think the recommendation for censure is carried, and therefore I announce that this council hereby censures Councillor Coleman.